certain country that had implemented the one-child policy, and did it work in that country?
It was part of my preparation, but I'm using like more examples than just that.
Hmm.
More like population control in general. It's kind of like a
Population control.
mix. Because it's hard to find specific countries with a one child, because one of the only ones who does is like China, and that's like the majority that I could find.
Hmm. And do you want to use China as your example?
I don't really have a specific standout example.
Because if we talk about China, we'll find more negatives than positives. So here we would be like, are we talking about instating a one-child policy as a concept, or in a pragmatic real-life world sense? Because I can then point to China and say, oh, here's the 4-to-1 problem. Here's the forced sterilization problem. Here's the selective gender
Well,
abortions.
oh no, no, no. My idea of a policy isn't going to mess with people's bodies. It would be more centered around financial incentives for people who do have one child and things like that, but we're not going to like force people to do anything.
But you can't be one-child policy instated and be for pro-choice. Can both of them exist at the same time, being pro-choice and supporting a law that forces a family to have only one child? My
Well, we're
question would
not like
be,
locking people up.
what would you do if someone breaks that policy?
Um, well, first I would look at their income and, their finances, and I would probably um give them a fine for having the child. And obviously this is based on people's income, so someone who's like middle class and someone who's like upper class, they're going to have a different fine for having the child.
But isn't this technically not pro-choice, or
I
and
don't see
and
why it needs to be.
has there ever been a situation where overpopulation has gone out of control that we needed a one-child policy?
um I mean, in China, like before they did it, I think they had like a lot of overgrowth, right? But I don't think it was to the point of disaster. But that doesn't
No,
mean it wouldn't be a good.
but we see the consequences of implementing this policy,
Like what
right?
consequences?
Oh, like men overtaking the number of women by about 36 million, I guess
Oh,
it
that's
was
a
30
full.
something
Oops,
million.
sorry, I thought you were done.
Yeah, for China, they prefer men because you don't have to pay dowry for women, so men are much more economically viable. So they do female infanticide, gender selective abortion. Girls be are being abandoned almost on a
That
daily basis. They go over like
that's a
there are.
fault of the sexist culture, not a one-child policy.
But if it could happen in like a matriarchal society as well, and we live in a patriarchal world.
And that's also a fault of the sexist
Again,
culture. Like a
are we talking about the concept itself, or are we talking about a pragmatic real world application?
it's pretty theoretical. Like we're not actual
Sure.
policymakers, but I think some of it has to be like real world because we have to think of how it's going to fit inside of
Then in
a
what
real situation.
hypothetical would a
It's
one
gonna
child?
differ depending on the country too.
Sure. So, in which hypothetical country slash situation would you instate a one child policy? wherein
Um,
attempting to redistribute wealth or attempt a socialist policy where people don't necessarily need a large number of children because poor people give birth to a lot of children because they are very financially dependent on them. So
I
in
I
what,
I mean,
yeah, just to
I don't
summarize,
know.
in what case would we prioritize not giving birth to children over fixing economic problems? Because this is the Malthusian trap. Have you heard of it?
No. A lot of the
Uh,
economic problems are due to having too many kids because you're stretching out resources.
yes, the resources that are usually funneled at the top. Again, like this is the myth of overpopulation, an extension of the Malthusian trap, which is the theory that as population growth, it's headed to an like the population growth will overtake the agricultural growth. So the food supply would, at a point in time, become inadequate to feed the population. So I think that also the idea of overpopulation, which was predominantly started in the 60s and the 70s, is an extension of that idea, right?
Sure. So it's basically saying that how do you spell it? The um
Malthusian. Yeah, and Brock provided a neat Wikipedia source.
thank you.
Thank you, Brock.
Outpaces agricultural production, causing population to be limited.
I'm not pointing at this specific theory. I'm just saying that what we have at the moment, like overpopulation, is just an extension of that theory. I mean, we could agree that there is an abundance of
Yeah.
resource, not a lack of resources.
Mm,
We can put it,
yeah,
point
because
at USA and UK, for example. More houses than homeless people, more food being produced, and then there are people to eat it, and food being thrown and wasted. I think
but
30%
the
in the
pop
US. Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
The population like continues and continues to grow though because a lot of people are having more kids, right? And um due to like lack of contraceptives in certain like places, lack of sex education, there's like a lot of population growth. I
Yeah,
think
sure.
yeah. And part
But
of the one
again,
child policy, sorry. Oh my god.
yeah, no, no, no. I pointed to this issue before. Is again, people can't take care of their children because of poverty. Is this poverty something that is necessary or is it manufactured? Again, we point to the overabundance of resources, whether it be food, shelter, or energy, and its distribution. Correct. In what way would a one-child policy fix those issues and not redistribution?
I mean, you can implement both things. Like for example, with people who have like less than two kids or people who like are interested in that, right? You can have family planning be part of this and they can have more resources for the kid they do have. Or you can institute like a financial UBI for people who have one kid and this can be part of wealth redistribution.
So by this standard, families that are wealthy would usually have more kids, and people that are poor have less kids. And
No,
then,
like um it's it's based off of your income. So like if you're like a wealthy family and you have like three kids, you're going to have a bigger fine than a low income family who has three kids because you wouldn't want the policy to be super like classist or anything.
hmm But what is the formula?
I mean, I didn't work out a specific like, you
What about
know,
single mothers?
math.
How
Single
can we
mothers
get
and single.
like a single parent or a single mother?
I
No,
mean, I don't think it has to be exact, but I think they would have a lesser fine too, and maybe they could even like, if we would still provide aid for these people if their kids really need help.
hmm, okay. Ready for my ace, the ace in my hole? Do you have data to support that claim?
Okay.
No, 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 I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, getting empirical data at this time would be like a dick move. No, I take that back.
Mhm.
But again, we were talking here in a very like loose theoretical outlook. It
Right, because we're not
does,
actual
yeah, yeah, it does redistribute
politicians.
wealth, but have you heard of the 4-to-1 problem in China?
The what?
4-to-1 problem. Because of their one
Um,
policy,
no.
because of their one child policy, each child have is responsible for two parents and four grandparents. And I have a wait, yep. There's an article made here by NCBI.
I also have a source on like population control in Bangladesh.
Mm-hmm. Can you read out its findings?
Yeah, I'll link it too
Mm-hmm.
and show what I specifically thought was interesting. Um, so, um, it shows that like a lot of women in countries like India and sub-Saharan Africa have an unmet need for limiting or spacing out their pregnancies, and they don't currently use contraceptive methods. So I think part of the one child policy could be giving these people family planning information and
But
like a lot better
te-
sex ed.
yeah, but that's not necessarily implementing a one-child policy. This is just better family planning. You can have
Right, but
five
it still can be
children.
related.
Yeah, but that's a different thing. It's advocating for better family planning, not a one-child policy. Again, a one-child policy means it depends on what you mean, but the way it was implemented in China was forced sterilization and harsh fines. Sometimes people could not afford those fines.
Well, we wouldn't be finding people. I mean, we would be finding people based off of their income. It would be able to be maybe a little inconvenient for them, but be affordable. And this one child policy is comprehensive. It can have things like free abortion
But it seems like
and
we're having a consequence-free policy here.
there's still consequence. Like the fine is the consequence. And the financial like disincentives are the consequence, but we're not going to like destroy people's lives. It's just going to be like slightly, not slightly, but kind of like inconvenient for them.
But like, isn't a child always kinda inconvenient? What is the difference between the one-child policy and just having a child or a number of children?
Well, having the one child, like the policy will include education about like the financial costs of having a kid and how it can be inconvenient before you have more than that one kid. So this can disincentivize having more than one kid, I guess. Like there can be
But
like required financial planning classes.
so let's say, for the sake of the argument, that someone from like he only makes, or a family that only makes low wage income, and they have three children and they can't afford the third. Fine. What do we do?
Hmm. If they literally cannot afford it, we can give them like a grace period, um, or like use some like social programs to help the kids themselves.
So it's less about a heavily or a strictly enforced policy, and much more of attempting to change a cultural attitude towards having children.
It's a set of measures, and a set of like efforts to incentivize having one kid or like none at all and disincentivize having more than one. But no, we're not gonna like, it's not gonna be as strict as China implemented it, for example.
But the question would be why? Now that we got a little bit of information about the how, why would we do that?
Hmm. Um, I guess many reasons. Like, for example, I think having one kid can help the parent give this kid a better and more beneficial life instead of having the parents' resources stretched amongst multiple kids. And you can focus more on this one kid, right? And you can like give it more care and have more money for the child than be like stretched out.
Hmm. What do you mean by more care, or like it being stretched out? I mean, I could use the same argument. Having another child would be beneficial for the child because it's making them less lonely, and that there would be a larger number of younger children to take care of the older generation.
Well, a child can avoid loneliness through friends at school, and it can avoid loneliness through the parent having more interaction for the child and more attention and more resources like food and school. And maybe the parent is able to afford their child doing more extracurricular activities because they just have one kid. So this kid can grow up with really good um just a good active life and good hobbies, and they can have well developed skills to take on into college and beyond.
Hmm. Because I've seen the opposite happening in China. Because this one child policy, most kids are grown to be very spoiled, and there's some problem with Chinese, or like children obesity. I'm not sure though. You can't quote me on that because I'm a little shaky with the data to back that one up.
I think spoiling a kid is more the fault of faulty parenting and maybe like a culture that's encouraging people to be entitled than it is a one child policy itself. And also
Mm,
hmm
I would make the opposite argument that a one-child policy necessitates like taking care of that child, being like it's your only precious child. You only have him or her or them.
but that could also help the kid have better self-esteem as they grow up, not to the point of being cocky or spoiled, but it could just be like there'd be a lot less neglect for children. I think it could be a really good thing because a lot of like countries dealing with economic um I guess economic trouble or economic struggle is leading to parents not having enough money to take care of the kid, and the kid could feel neglected and grow up with a lot of mental
So let's
issues.
fix the issue, the economic problem.
Having one kid to have more
Why
resources instead
dedicate
of
our resources at, again, like, how are you going to enforce this policies? You need to have people that work on enforcing them. Again, this happened in China. I think there half a million officers uh, that were responsible for family planning. I mean, why not just put those resources just eliminating poverty? Wouldn't that fix having all children? Like, if you could have five children, you can give them all the attention because, again, you're economically stable, you're happy. I mean, coming from a utilitarian perspective here, I'm not making the argument of, oh, the babies. Or we could talk about the babies, you know? You could have a country that prefers men over women, as again happened in China.
Again, that's a fault of the sexist culture and not a policy itself. And as for your first point about fixing poverty, I think there's room to do both of these things. But like fixing poverty could potentially take a much longer time than a one-child policy because it's very systemically rooted and it's like years and years of damage,
But
I
having
guess.
a one child policy could ruin an entire generation. I mean, by
How?
2050, I think it's estimated that 30% of China would be out of the workforce. Or there, yeah, yeah, I think that was the number. I didn't save the statistics. I'm sorry. But yes, again, the same problem that could happen in Japan, the aging population, selling more adult diapers than diapers for toddlers.
Do you have a source for the stuff about Japan?
The diapers?
The diapers and the aging population
Okay.
thing.
That's the first thing I found. More than 20% of Japan's population is over 65 years old. Population of China. There is a yep. There's the article made by Time.
Sure, I think that could be a potential fault, but I think we already have a huge overpopulation problem in general. Like especially like environmental and related to
Are you
mother
sure?
planet. I mean, I think this helps to show it. I think this quote from a
Mhm,
director at a school of geography and earth sciences basically saying that such a huge number of people has big implications for food security and resource management for our environment. And there are
mhm,
like huge concerns as to whether it is being prepared for that.
mhm. I mean, in reality, the this is the quote from another one that from the ecologist that debunked overpopulation. It's not that the human population is exponentially increasing, but it's in fact slowing, and it's like it's predicted to stabilize, right? And 11 billion is not bad. It's again the problem is the inequality. And I think the inequality that is being perpetrated by oil companies, hindering any source of alternative energy that is not reliant on fossil fuel, we could talk about that. I think we could really work on our infrastructure, right?
I mean, there's room, like I said, to work on both facets, but like we don't know. I mean, sure, the population may be like predicted to slow, but this could always go wrong, and there could always be another like baby boom or something
And
like
how can
that. You
we,
can't
and
just
how can, again, like, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but this is very important. How can we, if this policy is enacted, I think lower class income people will be affected and marginalized community as well.
That's a fall of like a culture who's of systemic racism. It's not the fault of like a one child policy. It's a fault of like classism and things like that. And like I said, the financial disincentives are going to be based on people's income. So like richer families are going to be penalized more than a low income family.
Mm-hmm. So okay, so now that we talked a lot about the theoretical, um, which country can a one-child policy help? Could you point to a country wherein child policy, instituting a one-child policy would help its economy or the quality of life of the people in it?
Mm, I mean, I didn't think of anything super specific. Like,
Mm-hmm.
probably India could be an example.
In what way?
Well, for one, they have one of the biggest populations,
Mm-hmm.
and like lots of them are financially they're financially in trouble, right? And they're like discouraged because there's so
Mm-hmm.
many people and they don't have as much like technology or healthcare as we do. So having a one child policy sorry, could like help distribute more resources for the people in
Mm-hmm.
the country.
Okay, and how would India dodge all the problems that face China? Again, selective gender abortions, female infanticides.
Better sex
Well,
education. And again, that's a fault of the sexist culture. So like there could be part of the better sex education could be um like I guess critical gender theory classes or like gender studies and like
is
ways to
that
break people out of like older thinking. I
is
think
that
having more
realistically
source.
possible?
I mean, we've shown that through like society, like even a lot of times in America, like for example, with like Black Lives Matter, like encouraging people about race theory and things like that, it helps them to like be more supportive of marginalized groups. Here's this from Stanford. It talks about how Uttar Pradesh has like 200 million people, and more than a quarter of these residents live below the poverty level. With only
Mm-hmm.
2.4% of the world's total land area, they have to support 14% of the
Mm-hmm.
world's total population. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
very disproportional.
Mm-hmm. But in what, like, again, we're back to the problem of poverty causes people to have more children, and we don't want people to have too much children. So why not just go to the root of the problem? Again, like this is the problem of resources. Can we really do both?
You
For
can, yeah, I
starters,
think
you
you
won't
can.
have the support of the people. What about the people that do want to have more than one child? Not necessarily related to their economic interests. I mean,
I
wouldn't a
mean,
large slice of the population push back against these policies? Not only are you trying to instate this policy, but try to change their culture concerning gender and their sex education.
certain, it's not like we're going, like, we're not going to be like dictators and we're not going to like, immediately put this down as of next week. Like, it would probably be more of a gradual thing and showing people how it can be good. Like we can educate people so they're at the point where they like want to have these kinds of policies. Like talking about the financial burden of having more than one kid, the environmental effects and things like that.
But I'm trying to appear to. appeal to the irrational part of people. You know, they're not machines. Their reproductive systems can't be just turned off and on again. There will be pushback, and there will be a current that um, rises up to maybe not like those policies. Again,
That's
even
why
if we are
people have like
being lenient,
education.
yeah, but
Like
I,
education helps irrationality. It helps people think more logically.
uh, mm, mm, I'm not sure if I can support that claim again. Like Althusser, for example, had talked about this. How
Like
uh,
people have the want to have sex and have children, but with like information and stuff about how these can be beneficial, like they're gonna be more likely to see how the policy can help. And it's
mm,
the one child policy is part of the broader effort to tackle these issues. Like I said, you can both have a one child policy and fight poverty and classism.
you did mention like the broader effort, but the broader effort towards what exactly? For me, it's about creating a society where you could maximize pleasure
Yeah, that's a
and
utilitarian.
individual
Yeah.
autonomy. Yeah, loosely speaking. Let's not get too pedantic. So, is this like the ultimate aim of our policies? Why I go against single child policy, and why you go for?
Like the broader effort is to like fight overpopulation and also like help people's quality of life, I guess.
And this is where we disagree. I don't think that overpopulation is a problem. I think it's just a myth. Again, we are back to the Malthusian trap, correct?
Yeah, the trap's part of
Mm.
it, but I don't think it's a myth that like um India having 2.4% of the world's landmass but 14% of the world's population. I don't think that being disproportional is a myth.
Hmm. But I do like. I didn't have the stats on hands, but I think that. Um.
Do you
Mhm.
sorry.
I don't know.
Do you
Go
think
ahead.
that overpopulation affects India negatively?
Yeah, because again, there's a disproportionate distribution of wealth. India and China both suffer from the same problem, wherein cheap labor is being outsourced towards them so that other countries would benefit from it.
Right. It's just that you said overpopulation is a myth, and you just said that the population negatively affects India, so I wanted to see like what part of it you thought was a myth, I guess.
Yeah, the problem of overpopulation is manufactured. We could fix it. This is the myth part of it, that it's not the problem there is a lot of people, it's just the problem that this wealth is not being distributed to everyone equally, or at least from each according to their ability to each according to their needs and so forth.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Oh, are you okay? From each according to their abilities to each according to their needs.
Right. Um, I mean, that gets pretty like complicated, I guess. And again, we can both like it
But
seems
I
like
think
you
this is
think
widespread consensus,
overpopulation.
right? That the problem is not a
And do you
lack of
think
supplies, but the chain of supplies is
I
not perfect.
I think it's kind of speculative to say India their issue is wealth distribution, and you thinking their overpopulation problem would be helped if they had better wealth distribution.
Not India itself, but the world. This is a
Even
uni-
then,
mm,
that's more
again
speculative.
waste statistics. I'm looking up the food waste statistics. Yeah, for example, in the United States, food waste is estimated to at between 30 to 40% of the food supply.
Right, but
Hmm.
this could also be because a lot of people are just encouraged to waste their food because we have a culture, like a lot of places have a culture that's very like wasteful and entitled, so people
Yeah.
like won't want to conserve.
Unfortunately, I couldn't find a global or data that talks about how food waste is done globally.
Yeah, I agree. The U.S. has a big food waste problem, but I don't know if it's because of wealth distribution. And even like I would even say, yeah, wealth distribution and inequality are huge issues that need to be helped. But this doesn't necessarily imply that overpopulation is going to be fixed by instating them, like
Hmm.
instating measures to fix them. I mean,
But again, it seems as if it's a desperate solution to a very easy to fix problem. Again, we hadn't tackled the 4-to-1 problem. How are we going to deal with the aging population, with the ever increasing burden of having to deal with a four grandparents and two aging parents? I mean, we risk like if we are going to implement in India, we are going to cripple an entire generation, right?
just have better policies for helping these people, like better, like those people who come to old people's houses, like home nurses and things like that. And home care, have better like home care and better health care and better like programs for old people so they can be taken care of.
But what would a child or a one-child policy give us in that point? I mean, didn't we already fix
It's
poverty by that point?
comprehensive. So like, I mean, I think one reason is because of the less money and resources going towards children, we can have more for the older population, I guess, or like let's say like a family's finances. They could have more finances saved up because they don't have to take care of as many children, so they can have like better retirement or like take care of their other family, older family members better.
But this isn't empirically proven. We have China here, which is suffering from that problem. How can you say that India will be able to dodge that problem? Are you
I
sure you'll
think,
be able to dodge it? You're playing with lives here.
I mean, I know, well, like this again is more theoretical and we can't be sure, we're going to be able to fix anything. We can't like know, we're not like experts on this.
We have an experiment, again, China, and it has been a disaster. So you
China was a
can,
lot more strict. And they like they hurt people's autonomy through forced sterilization and um I even
um,
one second, I have a source.
mhm.
Well, it was this is like talking about like China's policy. It's Wikipedia, but it lists like references.
Sure, sure.
So yeah, they required the use of abortion, sterilization. They imposed enormous fines for violations.
Hmm.
So, I don't, because like the fines with my idea of a one-child policy would be based on people's income. It would still be able to be affordable for them, right?
Hmm.
So we could avoid some of the issues China faced.
Hmm. But are you going to dodge it? We can, again, we're playing with lives here, aren't we?
I don't think they're lies. I don't think we can say for sure that they're
Well, yeah.
lies.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you have anything we disagree on? I feel like we kind of wrapped up.
I mean, mm, sorry.
Oh,
I guess I just
so,
want to say, like, a one-child policy doesn't mean we have to avoid fixing wealth distribution or anything like that. Like, you can tackle multiple things. And that we, like, a one-child policy doesn't mean we have to follow China's, like, horrible way of how they instituted their own one.
um, sure. Do you want to give a closing statement?
I guess if you don't
Sure.
have anything else to say.
No, I have a closing statement as well.
All right. Um yeah, this is why I think many places could benefit from a one-child policy. This policy being comprehensive and including sex education, which could help with contraceptive use, and it could also have financial incentives for people who don't have a kid, or disincentives for people who have more than one, but this would be based on people's income so as not to, like, oppress poor people. I think a one child policy, if done correctly, like how I think it could be done here, it could actually create a huge benefit with more resources and better life for children. I think.
No. Okay. And I think that the one-child policy does not necessarily succeed. There has to be a lot of empirical data to be shown to make me actually advocate for it and its quote unquote success. We had one example of it happening in China, too strict forced or selective gender abortions, and it being implemented into a patriarchal society led to the over pop no not overpopulation but the gender disparity between men and women. Again, I think attempting to institute a one child policy is treating the symptom, not the disease itself or the illness itself. I think the problem of um, having more children for their families and not being able to take care of the children and not giving them attention stems from being overworked, a lot of poverty in your community. And then by attempting to fix the problem itself, it would be much better than a one child policy. And